Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Shukul, and I'm joined by Dr. Klaper. I'm very excited to have you on, Dr. Klaper.
Oh, lovely to be with you and your viewers. Thank you for the invitation.
So Dr. Klaper has finally joined to discuss with us a range of different topics for today's podcast. And we're going to start off with why you'd want to choose a plant-based diet. So what are the positive, associations with choosing a plant-based diet, and why would someone make the shift from eating maybe a standard diet or a standard American diet, or maybe even one of the diets that are still like vegetarian or pescatarian or something like that, to a whole foods plant-based diet?
Absolutely. And the COVID pandemic phenomenon has certainly thrown this into very sharp relief for us. This is a heavy-duty virus. I was going to say who saw this coming, but those of us who have been railing for years about what's brewing up in all the animal exploitation factories, we're not surprised that this virus jumped out from some poor animal, whether it's a pig in a factory farm or a bat and a pangolin in a wet market. It's time, all the message is the same: stop killing and eating the animals. We'll put a pin in that for a minute here. But as far as the actual physiology in the human body, when we run into this virus, which has killed 1 million people or more around the world, what do we learn about it? Well, it started running through the populations, but as we started seeing the people really getting wheeled into the intensive care unit, we noted that a whole lot of these folks, one, are obese, and second, we get a lot of phrases of pre-existing medical conditions and coexisting medical conditions, which is a code word basically for diabetes and high blood pressure and autoimmune diseases that make you take immunosuppressing drugs like prednisone. Well, those kind of conditions certainly open the door to the coronavirus, to the COVID virus. And the more we drilled down on the science, the more it made sense. This virus loves fat tissue. It turns out when they do electromicrogram pictures of fat tissue, it's teeming with viruses. And so you get some person weighing 200 kilos with a massive amount of fat tissue. He's a virus storehouse, and so that just gives increases the viral load to a level where it's easy to see these folks getting overwhelmed. And well, to finish up on that, of course, one of the beauties of being on a whole food plant-based diet, the calorie density is so low that as the months and years go on, you wind up getting nice and lean on it. So you can't really hold obesity on a whole food plant-based diet. And so who knew that would also wind up protecting you from COVID? But yes, that's certainly a definite positive reason why someone, especially if you are at high risk for COVID, get on a healthy diet now and drop that extra weight, and you'll be, if you do get it, it'll be a lot less serious. I had COVID a few weeks ago, and I was achy for a day or two. I had a runny nose for 4 or 5 days. It was gone. It really wasn't bad on my 75-year-old body, because age is supposed to be another one of those strikes against you. But it turned out to be like a bad cold. Not even that bad. I've had worse colds. So, shed that extra weight. Second, it's been shown that a study came out, I think, in British Medical Journal Nutrition. There's already been a couple months now, where they noted that they bothered to ask what people are eating as they were getting admitted to the hospital and out in the community. And it turns out that those folks on a whole food plant-based diet had like 73 times less chance of winding up in the hospital with a tube down your throat than the folks eating the standard Western diet.
Yeah, I think that has 73% reduction in
73% reduction.
Yeah,
correct.
In severe COVID.
Right. Yeah. And so why should that be? Well,
that's a big percentage, Dr. Klaper.
Oh, it's huge, no question. You can make all sorts of analogies, but it's definitely the bet you want to place, no question. So scientifically, why should that be? Well, I have a patient we just did teaching rounds on who got bad COVID. And there are now laboratories who will test your inflammatory cytokines in your cells. These are molecules that a lot of immune cells put out, and they drive inflammation. There are times you want inflammation to overcome an infection. You want to marshal the inflammatory reaction. When you, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it turns out that you don't want to walk around with high levels of these cytokines and have inflammation percolating in your tissues. And the folks who eat a meat-based diet, when they have the chicken and the beef and the pork, etc., it creates a low-grade inflammatory reaction. These folks have more cytokines in their tissues just from their daily diet. And their cells are prone to put out lots of cytokines because every cooked meat meal angers the immune system a little bit, because it's another animal's protein going through, challenging your immune system. So people who eat meat-based diets are already in a more of an inflammatory state. Well, along comes the COVID virus, and one thing it does, it unleashes, or the body in response to it unleashes these cytokines. There's the cytokine storm that people talk about, and it just creates havoc with inflammation throughout the body. Most every tissue, nerves get involved, blood vessels get involved, brain gets involved. This is a generalized inflammatory reaction, and that's what winds up when it happens in the lungs that carries people off. Well, all the way around, we want to take that whole inflammatory state and turn it down. Well, that's the beauty of a whole food plant-based diet. The rice and the beans and the greens and the fruits and the veggies do not elicit much of an inflammatory response at all. The plant-based eaters walk around with very low levels of cytokines. So when they do run into the virus, it doesn't unleash all these cytokines. And so the people who get it get less sick. It's like I had, it turns into a cold, you're achy for a day or two, and your immune system handles it. And so from reducing the obesity and all the risks that go along with this, the diabetes, which high blood sugars interfere with your immune system's response. Well, the diabetic folks and the folks walking around with high sugars put themselves at risk for that. And the plant-based diet reverses the diabetes. And the fact that it's an anti-inflammatory diet, which is exactly what you want if you have that infection. All the way around, when you read the study, 73% less chance of getting hospitalized. When I saw it, I said, yep, that fits, that's about right.
Yeah, and then on the other side, if you had a high-fat diet, you had a 48% increase chance of, so.
Really? And so, published in that prestigious medical journal called it gets to be common sense after a while. So it's another sign from the universe and our body to adopt a plant-based diet.
It's obviously very topical right now because it's all on the headlines. It's on everyone's mind right now. Like, let's use another, if we have this evidence out there that, and there's been, I made a video, I think a year and a half ago, about there was so much evidence around plant-based diets and respiratory tract infections that they would, there's so many different things you can do to reduce your risk of a respiratory tract infection, but it wasn't really being heard, and obviously when something's so topical, we need to be giving ourselves the best possible opportunity to get better from this. But COVID is obviously one part of the health spectrum. There's so many other things that people suffer from, heart disease and cancer, and there's more people dying from that than there are from COVID. And so, let's talk about those diseases as well, and why you'd maybe want to shift to a plant-based diet when you're talking about these things.
Absolutely. No matter how you hold it, the picture stays the same there. We are plant-eating hominids, and we should not violate that natural law. Just go back to what we ought to be eating, and most of the stuff gets much better. Absolutely.
Yeah, and so I'm really interested in some of the things that you have seen get better. And so maybe you could talk about a couple of really interesting cases that you've seen, your time at True North, especially, I'm very fascinated with True North, actually, and the work that you guys did there. It's exceptional. And so would you like to talk about a little bit about some of the things you saw and what how you saw these people get better as they made shifts and did some short-term fasts and things like that with different diseases?
Sure. And we often, as you mentioned, use therapeutic water fasting for a significant period of time, as short as 4 or 5 days. But it's a place where our staff is very experienced at supervising fasts. So people come in for these long fasts, 20-day fasts, 30 days, up to 40 days. There's a man now, interesting, with post-COVID problems, and he's just completing a 40-day fast. Hopefully he'll get a good response from it. But it's the inflammatory conditions certainly get better. I've seen dramatic improvements. People come in borderline renal failure from these autoimmune diseases like lupus, erythematosus, and their joints are sore, their eyes are swollen, their skin is erupted, and their blood pressure's up. They're just miserable and very uncomfortable. But also, if they continue, they're going to wind up in kidney failure. Well, we would put these folks on a 10-day fast, 20-day fast, depending on the person. And then when they would come off, we would put them on a very gentle, whole food, plant-based diet. Easy does it with the refeed, just vegetable juices for a couple of days, and then there's some melon chunks or fresh salads blended up. And we like to do the raw foods coming out of the fast, and eventually just gradually add in the steamed squash and the very gentle cooked foods with, again, very soups and high water content foods. Well, it's, how many times we were making rounds and seeing patients get dramatically better by day 10, by day 15. They're different looking people when they came in. We would take pictures at the beginning so that we could remember what they looked like. And I would turn to the interns and say, if there was a pill that did this, we would all be trillionaires, but a water fast and a whole food plant-based diet and these fearsome diseases, especially the autoimmune inflammatory diseases, rheumatoid arthritis, responds beautifully, though it has a tendency to come back as the person gets their diet more varied. So the autoimmune and inflammatory diseases get markedly better. And then high blood pressure, we've seen some remarkable improvements in high blood pressure. Again, water fasting, very effective. You can't hold high blood pressure on 21 days of water. Eventually, pressure comes down. So these guys would come in with blood pressures of 190 over 110 day after day after day, and we would put them on a water fast. And day 15, they're getting discouraged. My pressure's still up, but eventually the blood vessels relax, and eventually the diuresis happens, and you come in one morning and zing, 128 over 80, and then we keep them on the fast for about another week. So we want to convince the blood vessels, this is your normal resting pressure now, believe it. And then we do that very gradual refeed. And it works beautifully and very impressive. Again, if there was a pill that did that, then we sure use lots of pills and medicine to pound that pressure down. But here, if you just, why was that pressure up? Because of all the salt and the fat and the oils and the sugars that they were running through the person's arteries. Those arteries clamp down, the pressure goes up. Well, if you remove those, arteries relax and blood pressures come down. And of course, there's always a psychological component. So we have a psychologist on staff to help people with their stress levels, because that certainly can raise your blood pressure up. So again, the autoimmune inflammatory diseases, the high blood pressure, and as we have seen now, thanks to Dr. Esselstyn and Dr. Ornish, the clogged up arteries. Because of all the atherosclerotic plaque on the inside from the fat and the cholesterol and all of that, a whole food plant-based diet, day after day, running that nice, lean, clean blood through the through the blood to the arteries, those plaques melt away and the arteries open up. And I remember we had a man, he was the head of physiotherapy from Truckee Hospital up in the Sierra Nevada mountains. He was a 58-year-old guy. He had such bad angina from clogged arteries. He couldn't walk across the courtyard at True North without him stopping and taking a nitroglycerin to dilate his blood vessels. He was in bad shape. He was this close from a heart attack. Well, he did his 12-day fast, I think, and then went on a really lean, clean diet, lots of salads and soups and steamed veggies and fruits. We kept him there for another 2-3 weeks, and he's feeling better, doc. And I said, it's time to start a walking program. And I would meet him every morning, and we would walk around the courtyard a couple times. I'd keep my eye on him, my corner of my eye, to see if he's got that look on his face of the pain starting, but no. And after a while, I said, well, enough of the courtyard. Let's go outside. Let's go around the building a few times. And we started going around the building. And I said, why don't we go down? There's a nice park a couple blocks away. Why don't we go down there? And by the time he left, he stayed a good 7 or 8 weeks at True North. But by the time he left, had no angina left. His arteries were clearly starting to open up. You know, he had just begun his journey to regaining his arterial health, but at least the sword of Damocles was not hanging over him with an imminent heart attack or stroke. And so, you know, we heard that it's a reversible disease, atherosclerotic clogging of the arteries. But here was just this graphic demonstration. And to see this man's life change, you can see it in his face, because I'm told, I haven't experienced, thank heavens, but they said, Doc, when you get that feeling, it's the hand of death. It feels like it, and you know what your death is going to be. Here it's arriving. And it's a shocking, frightening, existential fear that you have. And it crowds the joy out of your life. You want to see your family, you want to see anybody. You're looking into the abyss. And he had that aura about him when he came. And to see that slowly but steadily lift off him, and to know that he can go for a 6-block walk and he's okay now, it youthened him, his spirit. Man,
I tell you what, Dr. Klaper, that's such a powerful story, because, you know, as you're pointing out, like, the whole experience of life changes, and people are thinking, you know, I actually want to be able to do these things. And it's much more important to be able to do these things than eat that pizza that I used to have, or drink that beer, or whatever it is that they used to. You know, like, I gave a talk a couple of years ago in India that they invited me to have a chat, and I said, you know, they were talking about investing, because this is actually an economic forum. But so I said, well, why aren't we investing in our health? And the really interesting thing is, you know, people who are really sick, they're not sitting there on their hospital bed thinking, I'm so glad I had that burger, you know, for 2 weeks ago. You know, like, when you're in pain, like we see it all the time with some of our clients who are really struggling with, you know, 15 bloody bowel motions. They come and see us with that kind of situation, right? And they're not celebrating that pizza that they ate, or you know, the ice cream that they were eating, and they just want their life back. And when you give that kind of explanation, people really get, when you experience the difference that you can feel, it's such a life changer, isn't it?
Oh, it is. Like Dr. Furman says, a great line. He says, nothing tastes as good as healthy feels. And he's right.
That's on the money, that line.
Great line, Joel. I wish I thought of that. I use that one a lot, but I give him the credit for it. But that's what it comes down to. That, you know, is that 2-second or 12-second yummy taste and sensation in your mouth worth, well, you know, the hand of death grabbing your heart there? And it's not. Costs too much. Costs too much.
Absolutely. You made a very interesting point that you're talking about people coming into the fasting center with inflammatory conditions, like autoimmune conditions especially. Before we talk about, I want to obviously talk about your experience with people who got IBD. But fasting is sometimes a controversial topic, because some people do it unsupervised and then they get. Can you just talk about some of the things people should be aware of? Because obviously there's such huge benefits if you do it properly, but if you are not careful about what you're doing, let's just talk about that so people don't rush in. I'm just going to do a 20-day fast tomorrow. We don't want people doing that.
Thank you, Jacob. And very, very responsible of you as a broadcaster to focus the light on this point. Fasting is a wonderful tool, but it's a powerful tool. And at True North, we do medically supervised fasting, and we are watching people. We knock on the door twice a day. We check their blood pressure. How are you doing? Any nausea, any lightheadedness, any headache? We are hovering over them. And if they show any signs of distress, it's time for some juice. It's time to end the fast there. And so that's medically supervised fasting. And if you've got a serious condition, you probably want to go to a place where there's people who know how to supervise a fast medically. It also, medications get potentiated on a fast. They become more powerful on a fast, and there's reasons for that. Well, that can be really dangerous. You're taking insulin, you're taking blood pressure medication, lower your blood pressure. It'll drop your blood pressure to your boots. You'll pass out or drop your blood sugar down. So in general, at True North, we stop all medications on a fast except thyroid. And we can do that because, again, we stop the blood pressure medicine, but we're checking their blood pressure twice a day to make sure, and it never goes up, but at least we're looking at it and we can know what to do about it if it does. The same thing with blood sugar, et cetera, et cetera. So to your viewers contemplating a fast, if you are taking potent medications that you can't stop, if you're on prednisone, you're on high blood pressure medicine, you should not be doing long fasts. Certainly if you have type 1 diabetes requiring insulin, you should not be doing a fast. Now that said, there are advantages to very short fasts. I mean, we eat too much. We're constantly eating in this society, and the animals don't do that. They eat, they lay down, they sleep. But we're on this constant gorgeathon here, and it's good to give ourselves a break from that. And we do that every night when we're sleeping, when we're fasting. The first meal of the day is called break fast for a reason, and when we wake up in the morning, we're starting to burn more fats, which happens on a fast. And the ketones, the products that get produced from burning fats, start sending some good signals to the cells to calm down inflammation, to slow down cancer growths. The body starts to repair itself in the fasting state. And it's a healthy thing to do periodically for short periods of time. And so I'm all for people doing 24 hours on water, 48 hours on water. Start with that and see how you do. And now the concept is popular of intermittent fasting, and that is if you stop eating, say at 6 or 7 in the evening, which we shouldn't be eating late at night anyway. And you go to sleep, and for next 12 hours till 7 in the morning, you haven't eaten. Well, there's a 12-hour fast. But the philosophy says, instead of then, when the sun comes up, instead of running down to the kitchen and shoving a bunch of waffles in your mouth and a bunch of carbohydrates, you've gotten into that fat burning gear at night. Keep that going during the morning hours. And instead of eating, just drink water till 11 or noon and add an extra 6 hours in that fasting state. And you don't go into full-blown ketosis, but the wheels are starting to turn in getting you into the fasting state. As I said, the body responds. There's a process called autophagy, where the cells start burning debris and cellular debris and old oxidized proteins and carbohydrates, and they kind of clean themselves out from the inside. Well, the message goes out to start autophagy by 10 or 11 in the morning there, so you're starting to clean your cells out. There are molecules called sirtuins. I had never heard of them in med school, SIRTUINS. and they stop cancer growth. They stop aging. And as we're enter that fasting state, sirtuins start getting produced. And so if you're doing intermittent fasting here, you're giving yourself a little hit of sirtuins and autophagy every day. And that helps keep your cells youthful and cleaner. And so these very short intermittent fasts, I think there's a place for that, even if you're on medications. If you're not on medications, then you can tiptoe into moderately short fast at home, up to 5 days. So start with just a 2-day weekend fast. And after you've done that a few times, make it 3 days. And after you do that, you can get up to 5 days. A healthy person can fast 5 days at home. That's as far as you want to go. And you want, if you want somebody, you also want somebody around. If you get lightheaded or nausea or whatever, you don't want to have to go down to the kitchen and start making juice and all that stuff. It's nice to have somebody at home. But if you live on your own, just tell somebody next door there what you're doing, and stock the fridge up with some juices. If you just say, I need to eat something, that's okay. So there is a place for fasting. And anytime we throttle back on this nonstop eating in our Western societies, it's a good thing. And so, and again, it can be a stepping off place. See, the beauty of a whole food, of a water fast, you come out in this nice, pure metabolic state. Well, you don't want to go start eating cheeseburgers and buffalo wings when you put in that wonderful metabolic work. So this should be a stepping off place to a whole food plant-based diet and keep those beneficial changes going that you started on the fast. So the two go hand in hand. It's not just a matter of doing 5 days on water and going back to your pizzas and your burgers there. So, so there's a place for it. Read about it. There's now a lot of information online. And as I said, you can go, there's places in Australia you can go, and in New Zealand, the docs down in Wellington, I think, are still doing it. Mark and who's the other fellow there?
I think there's Dr. Stark is doing one.
Right. Yes. And so if that appeals to you, if that idea calls to you, and you wind up, it's a nice accomplishment. You go 4 days without solid food. You've done something. You've increased your power if you do that. It's a worthwhile thing to explore. And as I said, at least that putting breakfast off in the morning is a good idea.
Absolutely. I found that the longer I kind of follow this type of lifestyle, there's certain days where I'm just not hungry first thing in the morning, and I may just go till 11 o'clock and then the hunger starts to come in, and just automatically my body's kind of making those decisions for me, which is quite amazing.
Absolutely. And because I often ask my patients, are you really hungry in the morning? And a lot of them say, doc, I'm not even that hungry. Well, listen to your body. It's telling you don't need eat a bunch of carbohydrates at that time. Coast on that for a while is an absolutely okay thing to do.
And I wonder if, this whole obsession that we've got, Dr. Klaper, with monitoring how much nutrition we're getting with every single thing is kind of forcing us to have to eat and eat and eat and try and meet these kind of arbitrary targets that sometimes are created. Like calcium, for example, right? The RDA would recommend 1,000 milligrams, but looking through some of Dr. McDougall's work around calcium, we only need up to close to 300. You say we get 300 to 500. That's plenty.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So some of these targets are kind of like pushing us to try and like, oh my God, I've got to, if I don't meet this, or on the other hand, we can say we can fast for certain days and we're still going to be fine because our bodies are physiologically adapted to be able to do that. So it's like competing kind of. Yeah,
absolutely. Because the governments who made up these guidelines padded the numbers so they want to make sure they'll cover everybody. But what it inadvertently did is, as you said, it encourages people to eat more and more and more and more, which the farmers love. So the agriculture department likes that. But it's not compatible with long-term health. In fact, we're seeing the less we eat, when they do the long-term survival studies, et cetera, the folks who eat the less, when they feed the animals, less rations, they live longer. And it's true with humans. There's a Dr. David Sinclair at Harvard, and he gets down to he's eating one meal a day now, and he drinks water, or here's my hibiscus tea in the morning here, and he drinks it during the day, and he has one good plant-based meal at mid to late afternoon, and it's enough. And he's feeling lean and trim and bright and energetic, and something to that, and something
Fascinating.
yeah.
Don't just go and do that tomorrow. You got to kind of work your way into
build
understanding your body and how much you need to eat and things like that. But I think it's a really fascinating thing where the evidence shows that possibly we don't need to stuff our faces 3 times a day necessarily.
Absolutely.
But on the other side, we've got these guidelines telling us, and I have clients that sometimes, they'll do their diary for the day and they'll put into something like Chronometer, and they'll see like there's 3 or 4 of the values that aren't quite 100%, and they'll freak out. But you don't need to. Your body's quite amazing. Your body's quite amazing.
We store those minerals in your body, in your liver. You've got stored minerals in your bone marrow, your blood, your fat stores. We can go literally. We can easily go 40 days with no food at all. And so this idea that you got to eat all this constant, or else you're going to suddenly wither away. It doesn't work like that. The body is well provisioned to carry you for days and days with minimal nutrients, and we eat too much, and we die of diseases of excess. All of them: too much protein, too much sugar, too much oil, too much fat. It's too much, the diseases. It's not because we're deficient. I can't remember ever in 50 years of medical practice writing calcium deficiency or protein deficiency for a diagnosis. It doesn't really happen. So we should listen to our bodies and eat prudently.
Fantastic. So let's move on to IBD. It's very topical the podcast is called IBD Heal. We've been helping people heal from IBD since 2014. So it's coming up to 8 years now. Help hundreds of people. So a lot of people following us and trying to understand how to get themselves in a better place from IBD, and kind of like as we've kind of had more experience with this. Obviously we can't do fasting because we're working with people online, and that can be, obviously you don't want to push someone who's not got supervision into fasting. But what we've been finding is that the shift to the plant-based diet while they're on their medications makes a huge difference. And then some of these people, actually a lot of these people, and a lot of them with supervision from their doctor, are able to actually test out coming off these medications as the inflammation comes down, and then we're able to get into a process of refeeding and introducing all the different types of plant foods back into their diets. And it's quite an amazing transformation that people experience as they go through this. And you've had a lot of experience with this as well. So I'd love to hear some of the stories that you have and some of the ideas you have for people on how to deal with IBD and get better from it.
Sure, absolutely. This is one of, as I'm sure you're probably familiar, I suspect you may have had a brush with it yourself.
No, my brother had it, not me.
Your brother had it. We're talking about inflammatory bowel disease, and this manifests as diseases of the colon, ulcerative colitis, and Crohn's disease of the small intestine. And when you look inside the colon of people with colitis or the intestinal Crohn's disease, you see normally the inner lining of the intestine is pink and healthy. It looks like the back of your throat. And it's a very quiescent membrane. It's a lovely membrane in every respect. But when you look at the mucosa, the inner lining of someone with colitis or Crohn's disease, that lovely pink sedate lining is red and angry and swollen and bleeding, and there's pus on the side, and it's clearly infected. And that's what these conditions are. And we'll talk a bit more about the science in a minute, but just clinically, how devastating these diseases are. When colitis and Crohn's disease are fully active, it takes over your life. You can't sit in a movie. Every 20 minutes you're running up to the bathroom for a bloody stool. Airplane travel is a nightmare. You got to constantly be running to the bathroom there. It takes over your life, and it hurts. The cramps and the bleeding. You lose nutrients. You lose potassium. This is a serious condition. Both these, they're cousins, the colitis and the Crohn's disease. And the Crohn's has its own special curse in that it will burrow right through the wall of the intestine and burrow into the bladder or another loop of intestine, create these fistulas, and it's a nightmare disease. So what's going on, and what do you do about it? Here's one of those unfortunately, many conditions where I have to apologize for my profession and my colleagues. It's embarrassing. When you ask the gastroenterologists, most of them, there are getting to be some plant-based gastroenterologists now, but the majority of my cousin, Charlie, is a gastroenterologist. I asked Charlie, what do you think, you take care of a lot of Crohn's patients? Oh yeah. Colitis? Oh yeah. What do you think is the cause of these diseases? Well, no one really understands, Michael, that we think it's autoimmune, but we're not really sure. Charlie, do you think what these patients are eating and smearing on their intestine 3 times a day has anything to do? Nah, never been shown. Doesn't make any difference. Doesn't matter what about you. And you hear the gates come down and clank shut. Oh, they don't want to deal with food, for all sorts of reasons. They don't know anything about it. It means they have to say the word stop eating meat. They won't say those words. And they're eating the same food themselves. And so they're not going to tell their patients not to. They just don't believe that it's an issue. Well, it's an issue. And I mean, kids aren't born with this disease. Something happened to create this angry inflammatory reaction. What is it? Well, it turns out that, as we now well know, that there's lots of bacteria, and certainly in the colon, these trillions and trillions of microbes in our microbiome. But there's a smaller, but definitely strong population of bacteria all the way lining the small intestine. And normally, the bacteria are innocent bystanders. In fact, they're more than innocent, they're good guys. They break in our colon, the bacteria break down fiber in our diet into beneficial fatty acids. They manufacture vitamins for us. They kill bad bacteria. Usually the microbes are welcome guests in our gut, and we coexist with them very, very well. But the food we eat determines the microbes that live in our gut. If you eat a bunch of sugar, you're going to summon up sugar-eating microbes. You eat a bunch of meat, you're going to summon up carnitine and choline-eating microbes. And a lot of these guys, they're not so friendly. They've got Bacteroides and Pseudomonas and Enterobacter, and these are nasty bacteria. And they will, instead of just living on the very surface layer of mucus, where they belong, in colitis and especially Crohn's disease, they will burrow right into the wall of the intestine and start causing infection, pus and bleeding. And you see what an infection around your nail or in your skin looks like. Well, this is the same thing in your intestinal lining. Doctors have long used antibiotics to treat Crohn's and colitis because it's an infection of the bowel wall there. And so we're talking about diseases that are infections of the intestinal wall from the food the person's been eating. And it turns out, when you really take a good dietary history, it turns out which foods bring up these nasty bacteria. It's a fast food type of diet. The cooked meat, oils, and sugars and dairy are the most notorious and predictable food substances.
That was an interesting point. Sorry, I'll cut you off there, because you're talking about antibiotics, because there's obviously some issue with bacterial imbalance going on there, and there's no doubt about that. But the amount of people that have contacted us, or we're working with them, that said, after I took antibiotics, I had my first flare-up, or while I had Crohn's or colitis, the doctor gave me antibiotics and it made it so much worse. My bleeding was out of control and things like that. So what do you think is going on there? for these people.
Indeed. And the antibiotics, as life-saving as they can be, they're a blunt instrument, and they can't tell the good bacteria from the bad bacteria. Now the doctor can choose. There are certain antibiotics, amoxicillin, clindamycin, various ones that particularly will target some of the particularly bad actors, and so we choose that. But in many cases, again, it's all a matter of balance. You can knock down the bad bacteria, but if you knock down the good guys even worse or more severely, then you still got that imbalance where the pathogens actually win out. And so the clinical side is it's so crude. We're just now starting to analyze the DNA of the microbes in the stool so you can get a better idea which microbes there are there so we can target them. But again, when you take those pills, then they slide along the intestine, they wind up knocking down, they can't tell the good guys from the bad guys. It's a pretty blunt instrument. And half the times they make things worse, half the times they make things much better. But then still, now what do? You can't keep the person on antibiotics. It still comes back to the food. You want, and you can usually treat this condition without antibiotics. Again, we are hearkening back to our beginning of our conversation. We're plant-eating hominids here, where we are designed to eat a diet based on whole plant foods. We have fingers on our hands, not claws. We've got small mouths and flat grinding molar teeth. We've got essentially the same digestive system that our bonobo and gorilla cousins have. They're up in the trees eating leaves and fruits, and they don't get colitis and they don't get Crohn's disease. And that's a big hint to us. As long as you keep that food stream of whole plant foods going down the intestinal tract of these easy to digest starches and these gentle, well-chewed fibers, they're like an intestinal broom that clean the surface of the intestine. And chemically, the starches, etc., give the chemical message to the wall of the intestine. These are anti-inflammatory molecules, they're antioxidants, the green and yellow vegetables that are well cooked. And it helps put out the fire. And so again, it's the food, it's the food, it's the food.
You got it there.
It's the food,
It's been the food,
it's been the food all along, right? Exactly. And so I have sometimes when the person is just miserable and they are having 20 bloody stools a day, I'm all for using powerful drugs, man. Pull out the prednisone, whatever you need, put the fire out. But once you keep them on prednisone for a few weeks, now what do? You got to get them off of it. And the gastroenterologists who don't deal with what the patient's eating say, I use prednisone, but as soon as you stop it, they all flare again.
I have seen so many people, Dr. Klaper, who've come to me in a bad shape, and they, I've said to them, you probably best get a medical intervention to calm this down a bit, but go on a plant-based diet straight away. And while they're on the prednisone and they're on a plant-based diet, as they wean off the prednisone, it is amazing that as the medication goes down, the symptoms aren't coming back. And and there's so many reasons for that, right? Obviously, while you're eating the prebiotics from the fiber, you're starting to feed the good bacteria that you want, and you're starving out the bad ones, so their populations drop, the good ones increase. We're not creating the toxic internal environments for our bodies. We're not feeding the types of bacteria that create hydrogen sulfide and then create endotoxins that cause that low-grade inflammation inside our intestinal walls, and we're not feeding those bilophilic bacteria with the bile that we eat from a very high-fat diet. And all of that stuff starts to, as you say, it calms the body down. And so there is a place, obviously, in emergencies to try and use these medications. But as you say, you have to know what to do after. You can't just keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as I was saying, the gastroenterologists say, when you taper off the prednisone, they all flare up. That's right, doctor. You keep letting them eat the standard Western diet. That's what you're going to see. But it doesn't have to be that way. You want to tiptoe off the prednisone. and go back to normal form
Mm.
stools and get on with your life already. And it's a wonderful blessing to see these patients, similar to my angina patient that felt the hand of death release from his heart there. Well, same thing with these guts that are so fiery, to have them go back to a normal family life, and where they're not first, any place they go, where's the bathroom? Where's the bathroom?
Yeah.
To be free of that.
It's amazing.
It's a blessing, and it's the food, it's the food, it's the food. So
Absolutely.
there's hope for people with IBD.
And you can do it. I mean, my brother has been medication free for 9 years now. And he's, just last year, at the end of last year, he ran a marathon in 3 hours and 38 minutes. So
good for him. Good for him.
It's just amazing to see the progression he's been able to make, and he's got his life back. And even if you're on your medications, if you shift to a plant-based diet, you're so much more likely to go into remission much faster. It doesn't take long necessarily to put your body into remission. And then eventually, if you discuss with your doctor appropriately, that, and you ideally you work with someone who knows how to do this from a diet perspective as well as working with your doctor. That's the ideal scenario. And you can get, your blood results and your colonoscopy and your calprotectin scores all showing that there's no inflammation. You can talk to them, well, maybe I should take a medication holiday, see what happens, And so many of our clients, they kind of come off their biologics or their immunosuppressive medication, and they stay in remission, and it's just amazing, that's something that they were told they would never be able to do, and they're doing it.
That's an important point, and it's important not to buy into your doctor's pessimism. If he's never seen anybody get better, he's going to say, "Oh, you're going to take this for the rest of your life. It's always going to come back." Don't buy into that. And with some doctors, don't even mention your diet. They don't know what they're doing. Just do it yourself. And if you get better and they ask you what did you take, tell them then. But don't walk in and say, "I'm going to eat a plant-based diet and I want you to approve it." Don't wave the red cape in front of the bull. Just quietly get about your healthy plant-based diet and expect good things. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, as you said, we've seen hundreds of people be able to get their lives back, following this. And I'm sure you've seen so many of them at True North getting their lives back from these conditions.
They leave the clinic, and as they're going out the door, we go, yes, that's what medicine is supposed to do. It's so wonderful.
Absolutely. And we're documenting this. We've got more than 100 video testimonials of people who've been able to get their lives back. And it's all on the YouTube channel. You can go and
very valuable.
Hear their experiences and things like that.
Good idea. That's valuable.
All right, moving on to the next topic we wanted to have a chat about, which was processed foods, right? So, when we follow a whole food plant-based diet, we are removing processed foods from our diet because these are not real foods, they're not whole foods, and they don't come intact with all the nutrients and fiber and the water and the antioxidants and polyphenols and all those beautiful things that we want. So for that reason, we don't eat processed sugars, which is very commonly accepted. Everyone's on board with that. For that reason, we don't eat processed proteins like protein powders and isolated protein, all those things. And for people who've been following the whole food plant-based movement for a long period of time, the original foundation of this is we don't eat processed fats, which are oils. But there's been a lot of noise in this field. So, I mean, we don't really necessarily, we don't want to say these thoughts are bad and all that, because everyone has their own opinions, and we're all on the same team and we all want the same goal, right? But I guess, what are your thoughts on oil or processed fats from that perspective?
Right. Well, it's certainly undergone an evolution for sure, and we don't have it in our house anymore. So why not? What's the issue? So the issue is this. The problem isn't the fats per se. Fats are an essential nutrient. Yay, fats. Your skin oils are made of fats. Your hormones are made of fats. Your nerve are wrapped in fats. Yay, you need some fats every day. We're saying then get it out of walnuts and avocados and olives, and get it out of whole foods, not out of glass bottles. Why not, doctor? What's your problem with the oils? Here's the issue. When you bite into a walnut or an olive or a piece of coconut, the micro droplets of walnut oil and olive oil and coconut oil are firmly fixed to the fibers of the threads, the matrix of the plant, of the olive, of the walnut, of the coconut. And you can see it under a powerful microscope. You can see the tiny little micro droplets there. They're these fats, but they are firmly attached to the fiber. When you bite that piece of coconut or chew up that walnut, and the pieces of coconut and walnut go down into your intestine, your digestive enzymes have to move in, and it takes them hours to break down the carbohydrates and the fiber, and the lipases come in to emulsify the fats. And as a result, the actual amount of fat that gets absorbed from those micro droplets of walnut oil attached to the walnut is a very small amount, and it goes up very gradually as it gets absorbed. And one pass through the liver, it's gone. And it just doesn't have much of a physiologic effect. And some walnuts put into your porridge in the morning, and maybe some sesame seeds or sunflower seeds on your salad in the evening. Not only are very gentle as far as the amount of fats they put in, but they're beneficial. The fats with the greens help you absorb the fat-soluble vitamins. So they play a good role in this very modest, gentle form. But when you take those olives and you crush the fat out, or the coconut or the walnuts, and you make coconut oil, you make olive oil, this is pure liquid fat in a bottle. And when you put it on your food, nothing slows down the absorption. That leaps into your bloodstream. And now, and the folks, Mediterranean diet, and they pour half a cup of olive oil on their pasta. I'm doing good thing, heart healthy. Man, then, as I said, that leaps into your bloodstream. And now you've got 2 tablespoons of liquid oil floating around in your bloodstream. Mm-hmm. And it starts exerting physiological effects. It gets into the walls of the arteries, and it paralyzes their ability to produce this important compound called nitric oxide that dilates your blood vessels and lets them stay nice and supple. It stiffens the arteries. It keeps them from dilating. It gets into your liver cells and muscle cells. It blocks the enzymes that bring that lets insulin lower your blood sugar, so it makes insulin resistance worse. These liquid fats, the oils, start having adverse physiologic effects in your body that are not healthy by any stretch of the imagination. And so for that reason, we're saying, who needs this? It's no other animal does that, puts liquid fat on its food. And again, and finally, when these fats flow through the abdominal fat stores, they stick there and they increase obesity. And that in turn makes everything worse, inflammation and insulin resistance, etc. So a couple things about that. Eat your fats in whole forms. And have a piece of coconut, that's fine. Have a handful of walnuts, one at a time, chewed up well. You don't want to shovel in handfuls of nuts. I'm not saying eat all the nuts you want. All nuts and seeds should be kept to a small handful a day. That's enough. And eat them one at a time, and make walnut butter in your mouth, and chew it up really, really, really well. And you'll get the benefits in a very gentle form. But as I said, not only those fats are in the oils are so easily absorbed, it's so easy to use way too much of them. And now in the extra virgin olive oil, there are little pieces of olive in there, and they do exert some antioxidant effects. And there are some studies showing that it can be beneficial to various, maybe. But that comes down to the magic pill. If I just eat acai berries on my morning cereal, and I just put some Himalayan sea salt and take some kombucha tea, then I'm going to be healthy. And the same thing with the extra virgin olive oil, the magic. The magic's in the food. The magic is the quality of the whole food stream going through your body meal after meal. It's not contained in this glass bottle. If you are eating a lousy diet full of fatty, nasty processed food, if you're eating burgers and buffalo wings, pouring olive oil on a salad is not going to magically save you from disaster or make you a healthy person. If you are already eating a healthy whole food plant-based diet, they may say, doctor, are you really telling me if I eat like you, I do everything you say you do, but I put a teaspoon of olive oil in my salad twice a week? Do you really think I'm at higher risk for any serious disease? No, the dose makes the poison. Add a teaspoon just for taste. Now we got to be realistic. But that teaspoon turns into tablespoons, turns into cups, turns into pouring it on. That's the real problem there. And so why even tangle with this? And so my wife and I, we stopped eating oils. Well, what do you saute your veggies in? Saute your veggies in anything that's wet. You don't need oil to do it. Vegetable broth, you can buy boxes of vegetable broth. If we make vegetable soup, we'll take a couple tablespoons of the vegetable soup, throw it in the skillet and saute that. My wife will just chop up an onion and really fine and start stir frying, and it gets all wet in the pan, and throw the extra veggies in there. So anything that's wet will work. And when you stop using the oils, the vegetables taste so much better. We were out at a restaurant a few months ago, and we ordered a main dish, and it came with sauteed vegetables. Oh boy. Well, they brought the sauteed vegetables. They were sauteed in oil. They were dripping out. We couldn't eat it. And we looked at each other and said, we used to like this. And your taste really changed. That's why you don't even want to eat it like that any longer. So trust your
it leaves
taste.
this film. Leaves this film.
It does. You realize
you can
what it
feel
really is. The same
yeah.
thing. We stopped eating candies. Why? Because it's clearly just eating chunks of sugar. You can taste the sugar in your mouth. Well, this is clearly just liquid fat, and as you say, it leaves this film. Eat whole foods. We are. Follow the leads of our bonobo and gorilla cousins there, and so leave that one behind. It's another echelon of healthy eating. To go oil-free.
Fantastic. Yep. So completely on board with all that. Yeah, as you say, it's the food, and we want to keep the food as intact and as whole as possible. And for everyone watching this, it's very easy to get caught up in some of the noise and things like that that come around. But if you ask yourself a simple question, is this food as whole as it possibly can be? And if the answer is yes, go for it. And if it's a plant.
Exactly. Yeah, if you want to eat foods like you could identify growing in a garden. Oh, there's a tomato, there's some beans, but you never see oil, a pool of oil in the garden there. It doesn't happen there. The man has to get in there. So eat whole foods like nature designed them, and you'll stay on the good side of your health, no doubt.
Cool. All right, Dr. Klaper, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
So good to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you again. For everyone watching this, Dr. Klaper has been in the movement for decades, and he has seen a lot of different things come and go. And one thing that stayed the same is eat your whole plant foods. And it's been a consistent message that he's been providing for many, many years now. Really amazing.
Thank you. I have a website, drklaper.com. I'm sure school will put it down in the show notes. And I've got a YouTube channel. Go to Dr. Klaper, and I do Q&As. I'll be glad to answer your questions. So follow me on YouTube, follow me on my website there, and I got social media as well.
Don't you worry, Dr. Klaper. All the links will be down in the description below.
Thank you so much.
For everyone who's watching this, if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel so you get more videos like this, and hit that little bell notification icon to get updates of all our recent uploads. If you've got any questions, there's a comment section down below, and we'll do our best to answer as many of them as we can. And if you're listening on the podcast, please subscribe to the podcast and follow. We're putting a new episode up every week, so you can get amazing knowledge from incredible people like Dr. Klaper. So again, thank you so much for your time. It's so valuable, and I really do appreciate it. And I do hope that we get to meet very soon.
From your lips to God's ears, we hope. Okay,
right.
My friend. Be safe.
Thank you so much. Take care. Make sure you eat plants and lots of them, everyone. Bye-bye.
Absolutely.